Imagine a cold, damp cell in the heart of Blackwell's Island, New York, in the year 1883. The air is thick with the smell of river salt and despair. The stone walls are slick with moisture, and the only light comes from a flickering gas lamp in the hallway. Inside this cell sits a woman. She isn't cowering. She isn't weeping. She is wearing silk, and she is holding court. Outside her iron bars, a line of the city's most powerful men, bankers, lawyers, and merchant kings, waits in the shadows. They haven't come to offer her charity. They have come to offer her their fortunes. They are begging for the privilege of being ruined by her. This is Bertha Heyman, a woman who turned a prison cell into a throne room. To a Thai audience, this level of audacity and psychological control might bring to mind the legendary tales of the Kraju or other spirits that lure the unsuspecting into the darkness. But Bertha didn't need supernatural powers. She used the most dangerous weapon ever devised: the human desire to believe in a beautiful lie. The streets of New York City during the Gilded Age were a battlefield of ambition. It was a time of extreme wealth and crushing poverty, a world where your reputation was your only currency. If you looked like royalty, you were treated like royalty. This was the crack in the armor of society that Bertha Heyman exploited with surgical precision. She was known to the police as Big Bertha, the confidence queen. But to her victims, she was a wealthy countess, a woman of tragic circumstances and immense, hidden wealth. She didn't just steal money. She sold the promise of a secret world. This kind of high-stakes deception sent shockwaves through the Western world, much like the infamous Mae Chamoy case or the high-profile financial scandals that have gripped Thailand in recent years. In both cases, the victims weren't just the poor and desperate. They were the ones who already had everything, but wanted just a little more. Think about the psychology of the con. It's not about the money. It's about the story. Bertha understood that people don't want the truth. They want a reason to hope. She arrived in America from Prussia with nothing but a sharp mind and a silver tongue. She watched the way the high society of New York operated, the way they moved, the way they looked down on others, and the way they worshipped status. She realized that if she could mirror that status, she could own them. She began to craft a persona that was irresistible. She wasn't just a rich woman. She was a woman with a secret. And in the 19th century, a secret was worth more than gold. If you're finding yourself drawn into this mystery, I'd love to have you as part of our community. Please consider subscribing to the channel and giving this story a thumbs up. It helps us continue bringing these dark narratives to light and ensures you never miss a new story. Now, let's get back to the shadows. The year is 1881. The setting is a luxury hotel in Manhattan. Bertha Heyman walks through the lobby. She is draped in velvet and lace, followed by a personal maid and a footman. She isn't just staying at the hotel, she is occupying the entire floor. She tells the manager, in a hushed, conspiratorial tone, that she is the daughter of a wealthy European noble. She claims she is in America to claim an inheritance of $20 million, a sum so vast it would be worth nearly $1 billion today. But there is a catch. There is always a catch. Her fortune is tied up in complex legal battles in Europe. She needs temporary funds to pay the lawyers, to grease the wheels of justice. The bankers who met her didn't see a criminal. They saw an opportunity. They saw a woman who was one of them. She spoke multiple languages, she knew the intricacies of international law, and most importantly, she possessed an unshakable confidence. This is where the localization hook becomes so clear. In Thai culture, the concept of face and social standing is paramount. To challenge someone of high status is often unthinkable. Bertha used this cultural universal to her advantage. She made her victims feel that by helping her, they were entering an elite circle. She wasn't asking for a loan. She was offering them a partnership in a grand destiny. One of her most famous victims was a man named Charles Marx. He was a savvy businessman, a man who had made his fortune by being cynical and careful. But Bertha didn't approach him with a business proposal. She approached him with a tragedy. She told him her estates were being seized by corrupt officials. She wept, not a loud, dramatic sob, but a quiet, dignified tear that suggested a woman of breeding trying to maintain her composure. Marx was hooked. He didn't just give her money, he became her protector. He gave her thousands upon thousands of dollars, convinced that when her $20 million arrived, he would be rewarded tenfold. But while Bertha was living in luxury on the dime of New York's elite, the shadows were closing in. Enter Thomas Burns, the legendary chief of detectives. Burns was a man who believed that every criminal had a tell, a psychological flaw that would eventually lead to their downfall. He began to track the Countess. He saw the trail of empty bank accounts and broken promises she left behind. He realized that Bertha Heyman wasn't just a thief, she was a virtuoso of human nature. He famously said of her that she could talk the birds out of the trees. To a Thai audience, Burns would be like the legendary Kun Fan, the police officer with spiritual powers who hunted down the most dangerous outlaws. But even Burns was fascinated by Bertha. He noted that she didn't spend the money on typical vices. She didn't gamble. She didn't drink to excess. She spent the money on the performance. She spent it to maintain the illusion. When she was finally arrested in a dramatic sting operation at a train station, the public was shocked. Not because she was a thief, but because she was so ordinary. Without the velvet and the maids, she was just a woman. But Bertha had one last trick up her sleeve. Even as she was being led away in handcuffs, she smiled at the reporters. She told them that the police had made a terrible mistake. She claimed that the real Countess was still out there, and that she was merely a decoy. She created a mystery within a mystery. This is where the story takes a truly dark and bizarre turn. Bertha was sentenced to several years in the notorious Blackwell's Island Penitentiary. Most people, when they go to prison, lose their power. They become numbers. They are stripped of their identity. But Bertha Heyman was different. She understood that even in prison, there are people with money, and people with greed. She managed to charm the guards. She convinced the prison warden that she was indeed a woman of great wealth who had been wrongfully accused. Soon, her cell didn't look like a cell. It was furnished with fine linens. She was allowed to receive visitors. And who were these visitors? They were new victims. From behind the bars of a prison cell, Bertha Heyman managed to con 2 more men out of nearly $30,000. She told them she had a secret map to a buried treasure on the prison grounds, a treasure left by a previous inmate. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Who would believe a prisoner telling stories of buried gold? But Bertha knew how to play on the human Preta spirit, the hungry ghost that is never satisfied. She knew that greed makes people blind to the obvious. To a Thai viewer, this story feels eerily familiar. We have seen figures in our own history who, even when caught, maintain a strange magnetic pull over their followers. There is a specific kind of charisma that defies logic. Bertha possessed it in abundance. She told these men that if they bailed her out and funded her legal defense, she would share the secret of the treasure with them. They paid. They paid for the secrets of a woman who was already a convicted fraudster. The atmosphere of Blackwell's Island was one of misery. It was an island of the lost, home to the insane, the destitute, and the dying. The sound of the East River crashing against the rocks was a constant reminder that there was no escape. Yet, in the middle of this hell, Bertha sat like a queen. She would sit by her barred window, looking out at the skyline of New York, the city she had brought to its knees. She reportedly told a fellow inmate, "I don't care for the money. I care for the look in their eyes when they realize they've been fooled. That is the only moment I feel alive." Think about that for a moment. The sheer psychological darkness of that statement. For Bertha, the con wasn't a means to an end. It was the end itself. She was a predator who hunted egos. She targeted men who thought they were smarter than everyone else. She targeted the patriarchs of society and made them look like fools. In the late 1800s, this was a radical act. She was subverting the entire social order. As the years passed, Bertha's health began to fade. The dampness of the prison eventually caught up with her. But her legend only grew. When she was finally released, she didn't go into hiding. She didn't change her name. She walked right back into the most expensive hotels in New York and started over. But the world was changing. The police were getting better at sharing information. The rogues gallery of photographs was becoming a standard tool for detectives. The era of the Grand Con was slowly coming to an end. The climax of her story isn't a violent shootout or a dramatic chase. It's a slow, cold realization. Bertha found herself in a courtroom for the final time in the late 1890s. This time, there was no velvet. There were no maids. She was older, her voice was thinner, and the world had seen her face in every newspaper from New York to San Francisco. The prosecutor called her a common thief. But Bertha stood up with a flash of her old fire and said, "I am not a common thief. A thief takes what he wants. I was given what I wanted. These men handed me their souls because they were too greedy to keep them. The courtroom fell silent. It was the truth that no one wanted to hear. She hadn't forced anyone. She hadn't used a weapon. She had simply held up a mirror to their own avarice and let them walk into the reflection. To a Thai audience, this is the ultimate karma. The victims were punished by their own desires. In our culture, we are often warned about the BAP sin of greed and how it clouds the mind. Bertha Heyman was the physical manifestation of that warning. She disappeared from the public eye shortly after her last release. Some say she returned to Europe. Others say she died in a boarding house in Brooklyn, alone and forgotten. But her influence remained. She paved the way for the modern social engineer. Every time you hear about a scammer on the internet who pretends to be a prince or a billionaire in distress, you are hearing the echo of Bertha Heyman. She was the original. Let's look deeper into the historical context of that era. The 1880s was a time of the self-made man. America was obsessed with the idea that anyone could become a millionaire through hard work. But Bertha exposed the flip side of that dream, that anyone could pretend to be a millionaire through hard lies. The political tension of the time was high. There was a fear of immigrants and foreigners bringing chaos to the stable American society. Bertha, with her Prussian accent and European airs, played right into those fears and fascinations. She was the mysterious outsider that the American elite both feared and desired. The sensory details of her world are essential to understanding her power. Imagine the scent of her perfume, a heavy, floral musk that would linger in a room long after she left. Imagine the rustle of her silk skirts, a sound that, in the 1880s, signaled wealth and status. The visual of her in the dark, torchlit hallways of the prison, her jewelry catching the light, creating a stark contrast with the gray stone walls. This wasn't just a crime, it was a gothic horror story where the monster was a woman with a charming smile. The localization hook here is the concept of the veneer. In Thailand, we have a very sophisticated understanding of prestige and how it can be used to mask one's true intentions. We see it in the way some people use religious symbols or merit-making to cover up their corrupt dealings. Bertha did the same thing with the symbols of European nobility. She knew that if she wore the right cross or mentioned the right royal connections, people would stop asking questions. She understood the sacred language of the upper class. As we reach the conclusion of Bertha Heyman's story, we have to ask ourselves, why are we still fascinated by her? Is it because we admire her intelligence? Or is it because, deep down, we wonder if we would have been fooled too?
She was
the confidence
mysterious
queen didn't just sell non-existent secrets. She sold the reflection of the people she cheated. She showed them that their morality and business sense were incredibly fragile when faced with the promise of a miracle. Bertha's story is a reminder that the most dangerous secrets aren't the ones hidden in safes or buried in the ground. The most dangerous secrets are the ones we keep from ourselves. The secret belief that we are special, that we deserve something for nothing, and that we are too smart to be tricked. Bertha Heyman spent her life proving that no one is immune to the big lie. She remains a shadow in the history of New York, a ghost of the Gilded Age. Her name is rarely mentioned in history books, but her DNA is in every headline about a high-profile fraud. She was the woman who sold the air, the woman who turned a cell into a palace, and the woman who proved that in a world of shadows, the person who holds the candle controls the darkness. As the sun sets over the East River today, the ruins of the old hospitals and prisons on Blackwell's Island, now called Roosevelt Island, still stand. They are silent witnesses to the era of Big Bertha. If you walk past those old stone walls on a quiet night, you might almost hear the rustle of silk and the quiet melodic laughter of a woman who knew exactly what you were thinking. She is a reminder that the world is a stage, and the most successful actors are the ones who never admit they are playing a part. Think about the legacy of the Countess. To a Thai viewer, her life is a Tamsang teaching about the nature of illusion. We live in a world of filters and curated identities, where everyone is trying to sell a version of themselves that isn't quite true. Bertha Heyman was simply a century ahead of her time. She didn't have Instagram, but she had the hotel lobby. She didn't have crypto scams, but she had the buried treasure of Blackwell's Island. The technology changes, the location changes, but the human heart, and its endless hunger for the impossible, remains exactly the same. Before we leave the shadows of Bertha's world, I want to leave you with one final thought. The next time someone offers you a deal that seems too good to be true, or tells you a story that feels like it was written just for you. Remember the Countess. Remember the woman who sat in a damp cell and convinced the world she was royalty. Because the most convincing lies are the ones we want to believe in. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the dark history of the Confidence Queen. If this story made you see the world a little differently, or if you found the connection between the past and our modern reality intriguing, please share this video with someone who loves a deep dive into the human psyche. What do you think was Bertha's most impressive con? Was it the money she took, or the way she manipulated the very system meant to punish her? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one of them. Until next time, keep watching the shadows, but never trust what you see in the light. Would you like me to create a detailed script for another high-profile historical con artist, perhaps focusing on a figure with even more direct ties to Asian